Well, welcome to the May 2024 Planetarian Zoom Seminar. Today we have Tony Smith and Anna Hurst from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, and we have Mary Holt from the California Academy of Sciences speaking on preschool children in the dome. Uh, Before handing it over to them, I want to just let people know that we are next month we are organizing a planetarium seminar that is called Planetarium Climate Roundtable. So the subject matter will be climate resources, and we're going to get representatives from NOAA and from NASA to join in a discussion. Um, then, Rosemary, what was the other thing I was supposed to mention?
We will not have a July seminar
Okay, that's
because of the IPS meeting.
yeah, there's IPS meeting in July. Okay, so with that, I think we can turn it over to Anna from you. Anna, if you will unmute.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. I see some familiar faces as well, um, and glad to be here. I'm just going to bring up my slides. So my name's Anna Hurst. I am a program director at the Astronomical Society of the Pacific, or ASP for short, and I'm joined by my colleague, Tony Smith, also at the ASP. You'll be hearing from him a little bit later. And I'm going to talk to you about the ASP's NSF-funded program, My Sky Tonight. First, I want to back up and just tell you a little bit about the ASP. We're a nonprofit organization based in San Francisco, California, although we have staff, remote staff around the country. And we are focused on helping folks who communicate about astronomy do it in more effective ways and provide resources for you to do that. So we work with classroom teachers, informal educators, park rangers, Astro 101 instructors, anyone who's talking to students or the public about astronomy, we try to support them in doing that. We are interested in doing more to support the planetarium community. We have a few members on staff who have backgrounds and experience working in planetariums, and it seems like a natural fit for us to really do more to really support the planetarium community and all the good work that you're doing in communicating astronomy to the public. So we are really excited to talk to you more today and find out from you what kind of support you need in this realm of reaching preschool children in the planetarium. So we're looking forward to, after sharing a little bit of these resources, hearing from you about what you're already doing, what kind of support you need, and maybe we'll be able to provide you some of that support in the future. So here's our contact info if you're interested, and the website for the program My Sky Tonight. My Sky Tonight was an NSF-funded project that ASP did in collaboration with some researchers in cognitive development, early childhood education, and astronomy education. And we were focused on engaging 3 to 5-year-old children in science practices through hands-on activities in museums. And we actually did a lot of our testing up at the Lawrence Hall of Science. So you may recognize someone in this photo, Ellen. Ellen was a great partner with us. We created a set of research-based hands-on astronomy activities that are rich in science practices and designed to be developmentally appropriate for pre-K age children. We covered topics such as changing shadows, moon phases, day and night, space exploration, and we created supporting materials and resources for the educators who facilitate the activities, including some short instructional videos, and guides to engaging young children in science. So this wasn't specifically for planetariums. I want to note that. However, I think you will hopefully find some of these resources helpful for you as you work towards engaging younger children in the dome as well. So I'm going to drop the link in the chat where you can access all the resources. And during the time of the funding from NSF, we trained hundreds of educators at about 200 museums and parks and libraries across the country in how to use these materials, and sent them a toolkit with everything and all the physical materials. So just sharing some photos of cute kids engaged in our activities. This was also a research project. So our research partners were looking at how children engage in these science practices and also what interests them. We did find that young children in this age group would spontaneously ask questions about the sky. I mean, I think anyone who has a toddler knows that they recognize the moon, right? That's one of the things that interests them. They are interested in topics such as where does the sun go at night? How does the moon stay in the sky? Why do the stars shine? So there was a whole research part of this project as well that was looking more at what topics in astronomy are children already interested in, and which ones are appropriate to engage them in. Just some more photos. We love these kidnoculars. We had a sort of observing tools activity. And then one of our most popular activities was Bear's Shadow, and maybe some of you have encountered this in other contexts. We started out by reading the storybook Moon Bear's Shadow by Frank Ash, and this is a story about a bear who's frustrated with his shadow after it scares away a fish in a pond, and he's fishing. And so throughout the story, he's trying to kind of ditch his shadow. And even it's not called out in the text, but in the illustrations, you notice Bear's shadow is changing position and length throughout the day. So after reading the book and getting the kids engaged to the story, we have them experiment with making shadows with a little three-dimensional scene from the book, and they can move the light around and make long shadows, short shadows, try to make the shadow touch the fish in the pond. And I was thinking I would share just a short clip of this activity in action, if that's okay. Let me find, where is my, sorry, I have too much stuff open here. Hold on. Give me one more chance. Let me see if I can pull it up. If not, I will. Here we go. So just a couple minutes of kids experimenting with shadows. How do you make it long? Where'd Bear go?
Did you even do the one?
Oh, he's hiding behind the tree.
Did you even?
Well, let's see. Let's see Bear's shadow. Can you make a shadow?
Touch the fish in the pond, because I think that's a
I know how to make a shadow long.
Oh yeah, can you tell us how you make it long? Oh.
show a better shadow if you have it.
Does that, Rainey, what do you think? Does that look like a long shadow? It looks great because this is kind of right on the edge of what. How did you do that, Owen? How did you make it long?
For lunch? Yeah.
I'm putting marshmallows.
Touching the fish.
Oh.
Look at
How about?
Oh, look at that long shadow. Yeah, look, there's Bear's shadow. Look how long it is. Are you holding the light? Are you holding it up high or down low? What happens when you hold it up high? How does the shadow look? Whoa! I'll zoom ahead a little bit here. We also would then pair that with going
Observations of
outside
shadows
and
outside on a sunny day.
observing shadows
a volunteer
outside with the
shadow,
actual phenomenon.
noting the position of the sun in the sky. Then return later and trace the shadow again while the volunteer stands in the same location. Observe how the sun and the shadow have changed position.
Okay. And this activity, let's see, where's my slides again? was really well received. This is one of about a dozen activities we developed. And some of you may have encountered it through NISENet. We were a partner with them on their Earth and Space kit, and NISENet decided to include Bear Shadow in their kit as well. And I'll just show you on the ASP page that I shared. This is our, this is where you can find all the activities. So there's Bear Shadow up top, but we have others around the moon, exploring space, making craters is a classic, building space explorers. And each of these has an extensive like activity guide and then also a video showing you how to do the activity. So I definitely encourage you to check this out. There's also some additional resources about like how to work with young children with some written guides and videos. So I think you would find those really helpful if you're new to working with this audience. And then I just want to mention after Bear's Shadow, after our My Sky to Night funding, we a colleague of ours at the ASP also got more NSF funding that sort of build off of this. This was now, I want to mention this is working with third graders, so this isn't any more pre-K, but they did use they did go into the planetarium. So I'm going to play you a short clip of just another video just so you can see how Bear Shadow had translated to the planetarium with one of the ASP projects. And then Mary's going to talk to you about that as well at the Cal Academy.
Sequence of activities brings together pre-visit activities and post-visit activities and makes these connections all the way through. So when students get to the planetarium, they're prepared. The first grade students are
They were working with elementary school classrooms,
recognizing how shadows change. They can also make
and storybooks. And this is in the Lawrence Hollis Science Planetarium.
The position of the light source.
In their classroom experiences, they've been using actual materials that mimic the story, actual light sources, and little figures of bears to block the light. In the planetarium, you're in an imaginary world, so you can bring in the sun, have it shine for any time of day, morning, afternoon, evening.
We found that students were really engaged with the character of Moon Bear. We think that students' relationship with Moon Bear may have helped them make sense of the shadows across all of the lessons.
But when there's a storybook character that students can connect with, it adds to their motivation. So when our bear appears in the planetarium, it's like an old friend coming back.
After they read the storybook in one class, the students then went out on the playground.
You get the idea. I just wanted to share that because we did take that activity and try it out in the planetarium. But again, that was with slightly older children. So let's see. But we were also really intrigued by like, how does the story play into this? Why did how did the story help make this activity so successful and engaging for children? And so to explore that, we got some supplemental funding from NSF and to explore that question with our research partners. And in that process, we also created a children's book called Breakfast Moon. So that's on that ASP page that I shared with you as well. This is a story about a family. The main character is May, and then her younger brother, Arthur, and they're looking for the moon in the sky each morning and recording their observations in a moon journal. So it's a storybook that's modeling kind of the basic scientific process. So encourage you to check that out as well on our page. So that's just a little overview of kind of what we did with My Sky Tonight, and I hope that you'll check out the resources on that page because I think there's a lot that will, again, be supportive with you there, even though it's not specifically for planetariums. And we're hoping to build on this work to do more to support you all in the planetarium specifically. I do just want, before I end, I just want to put in a plug for the ASP's annual conference, which is coming up in August. It is a virtual conference, so you can join via Zoom from anywhere, taking place August 22nd to 24th. And we are having a planetariums strand in our conference this year because we know it's the centennial and because we also want to be connecting planetariums more. So we hope you'll consider joining us for that. I'm going to drop a link in the chat about the conference and where you can find more info. You're also welcome to submit abstracts if you're interested in presenting in the planetarium strand. Those are due June 9th, I believe, although there's a good chance the deadline will be extended. But go for June 9th if you want to present. And I'll just put our contact info up there again one more time in case you want to reach out. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with you after we hear from Mary. So looking forward to hearing from you more then. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Anna. So I'm going to be so my name is Mary Holt. You're catching me at an interesting time because I am presenting today for the California Academy of Sciences, but as of Tuesday, I will be at the Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley. So I'm actually in a transition period right now. Yeah, Brian. Brian is my new boss. So yeah, but I'm going to be talking about some of the programs that we have done at Cal Academy that we collaborated with ASP about for several of these. So let me, before I share my screen, I'm actually going to share the slides because the slides do have some links to videos of some of the programs as well. So let me share my screen. Okay. So just wanted to give a quick overview of the preschool programming that we have done at the Academy, which almost entirely features Hofeld Hall, not the main planetarium dome, since at the Morrison Planetarium, we actually do not allow kids under the age of 4 to come to planetarium shows, especially because it's just such a tilted dome. It's kind of almost dangerous to have really, really little kids in there in the dark. But instead of having them in the planetarium, we do have this alternate venue called Hofeld Hall where all ages can come. So we've been using that as a space where we can do preschool specific things. So what is Hofeld Hall? Well, this is the entrance to it here, right below the planetarium. So that big white dome there is Morrison Planetarium. And if you go inside, this is an example of what it looks like. So there's me. And that's me giving one of our most recent preschool show. So it's a panoramic screen, it has 3 projectors, and we do have both UniView and open space that we can use on the screen. And then previously, we also had Digital Sky back around when I first started there, back in like 2015. So these are just a quick list of the shows that we have done specifically for preschoolers. Shapes in the Sky is the one that I personally have not given. That was before I started, but that was done using Digital Sky and was just a very quick constellation show, essentially just talking about, and not even just constellations, just literally shapes that you can find in the night sky. And then Moon Explorers was one that I worked on where we explore the moon and pretend to walk around on the moon and everything. It's very fun. And Shine and Seek, which I'll show a couple of pictures of in just a moment, was a collaboration with ASP and using the Bear Shadow activity. And then our most recent one, which I love the title of this. I didn't come up with this. Michael McConville actually came up with this title, so you can thank him for it. The Rocky Planet Picture Show is what our current show is right now. So Moon Explorers, if you want to check out some videos of Moon Explorers, I've got a few different examples here. This was one that actually during COVID translated perfectly well to a virtual setting. We were able to give it to some school programs virtually during COVID when the planetarium and Hofeld Hall were closed. So that worked out really well. So we were able to do that in a couple of different ways. And then Shine and Seek, there's a video as well, but I can show you some pictures of the Shine and Seek activity. So this is what we use to advertise the program. And this is the setup. So we had 3 different stations. The first station, you could just go to whichever station you want, move around as much as you wanted. And there was a planetarium presenter facilitating, but it was mostly self-guided that the caregivers could bring their kids around and go to the different stations. So one station had the storybook and a bear that you can hold on to while you're reading the storybook if you want to. We also had the area that had specifically the bear shadow activities, so the little trees and the flashlights and everything. And then the third one, we just used it as an opportunity to just explore different shapes of shadows and things. So we had just a bunch of random objects basically, and would encourage kids to try to see what kind of weird or interesting shadows they could come up with. And in the background, you can see the sky. We just had just a projection of Golden Gate Park on the screen, just to have something as kind of a backdrop. And Rocky Planet Picture Show is the one that we've been doing for the last few months. And we also had ASP come and watch a preview of the show as we were making it. And we collaborated with them and had them look over the script and stuff as we were developing the show, to make sure that we were, making it interactive, making it something that the little kids would be interested in. And this was a recent one that we did where I had over 100 people. And Hofeld Hall is not very big, so that's a lot of people for Hofeld Hall. We had this whole Montessori school that I would guess they were 4 years old or something like that, and that they all came to the Hofeld Hall show, and it was really, really fun. They actually were super well behaved. I was very pleased. And throughout the show, we give opportunities for the kids to count down with us if they know how to count, which a lot of them don't, which is totally fine. But count down with us with our rocket launch. And you can see I've got the little planet plushies with me, and we have a bunch of the planet plushies so the kids can hold on to a planet during the show. And we will hold them up at different points and be like, who has Earth right now? Who has Mars? And things like that. And so they're able to interact throughout the show. Yeah, I think that's a very quick, I always talk too fast, so if anybody has any questions, please let me know, but we will be having a discussion in a moment as well. So if during those discussions, if you have any questions for me, please let me know. But that's a quick overview of what we've been doing at the Academy.
Okay, so Mary, do you want to take any questions now, just while we're
transitioning? Yeah, does anybody have any questions right now?
I wonder if you could put your those URLs that were in your presentation into the chat.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you should be able to, if you open the slide deck, you should be able to click on them in the slides, but I can also share the individual ones. Let's see. Any other questions while I'm doing that?
Where would we get that slide deck?
I put it in the chat.
Okay.
So right when I started. And it should be, let me know if anybody has trouble opening it. I did make it available for anybody to be able to open it.
So I do have a question, maybe while Mary's doing that.
Oops.
And
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure who it's for, but when you do something like storytelling in the dome, and there's the moon or the sun or some object that the planetarium could do in a realistic way, do you choose to do it more with an image so that you can move it about freely? Or do you understand what I'm saying? Like if the sun comes up, do you have the sun come up through the planetarium software, or do you have like an image that rises?
Yeah, as much as possible when we're doing things, we always try to make things as realistic as possible and as dynamic as possible. So, and a good example of that actually would be in our kindergarten through second grade show that is in the planetarium. We do have the sun move across the sky. And even in the older kid shows too, like the third to fifth grade show, like we made a point of like not wanting to have like static images of the sun's movement, like actually show the sun's movement and have people, and like with that show we have the kids like trace where do you think the sun's going to go, and then we actually see the movement happen and see if it matches and things like that. So yeah, as realistic as you can make it, I think is best.
I think Thaddeus has a question.
Yeah, I was wondering if you had any tips for how to help your presenters get more comfortable presenting to especially those very young ages.
Do either of you want to take that one?
I think that's probably closer to your experience.
Okay. Yeah, I would say just reminding them that one of the biggest things I feel like is reminding them that like you don't need to be talking the entire time, which is something I have to remind myself of as well. Like, I feel like if there's a silence, like you feel like you need to fill the silence and just keep talking. But actually, one of the bits of feedback that we had when doing the preview for Rocky Planet Picture Show that they recommended for me specifically, they're like, slow down and talk less. You don't need to like you don't need to be filling the silence the entire time, because you really need to make sure that you're giving the kids a chance to absorb what you're saying. And they're not going to absorb everything, like they're going to miss some things, and that's okay. But just make sure that you're like taking some pauses, make sure that you're using language that you know they're going to understand. Like, don't use like big sciencey terms and things like that. But you also don't need to dumb it down. They can understand quite a bit, even the young ones. But yeah, so slow down. Don't feel like you need to talk the entire time.
And I'll just mention really quick, the next thing that we're going to do in our the session today is we're going to go into some breakout rooms with some different topics. And one of the discussion topics is what are successful engagement strategies. So if folks have other things in your experience that you would like to be able to share, you can hold on to those. Don't feel like you got to get them all out right now, because we'll have some focus time for that, and then we'll be able to summarize those things as a whole group after that too. So maybe just before we transition to that, I see Thor's got a hand up, and then maybe after Thor's done, then we'll transition to the next part.
Can I just say one thing in response to the last question, and then go over to Thor? I just want to say that at the bottom, I'm putting the link in again of our My Sky Tonight resources. At the bottom of the page, there's some kind of guides for educators, and there's one called Developmentally Appropriate Strategies for Interacting with Young Children. And there's some brief tips of like, here's some simple tactics you can try while you're interacting with young kids. There's also a video there that models that. So that could be a starting point where maybe you could look at that together with your staff and discuss it, and they could try a few of those, like things about like narrating what the child's doing. I mean, that maybe doesn't apply in the planetarium dome, but strategies for how to ask good questions that will get them engaged, things like that. So I encourage you to check out that resource. And then why don't we go over to Thor now? Sorry, Thor.
I just had thank you. Great presentations, by the way. I was wondering, this might be a separate breakout room, but if you could review the NSF assessment data practices that you were generating from your research, and give us some like, best practices that you learned in your assessments, and how we could design our own assessments in the future.
So are you talking about the research we did for My Sky Tonight?
Yeah, just taking the assessment data that you got from your young audience, right? And did you have repeat visitation by those same kids over, let's say, a year? Did that track? Did their progression within science and math track at a higher level because they went through this program, or has there been any of that extended duration data?
We didn't really do that through My Sky Tonight. So we were working with museums, so it was mostly a single visit. Some of the development of the activities took place at Lawrence Hall of Science, and some of those took place over like a week-long summer camp and things like that. And and then the researchers did some diary studies with some families, where families would record. They asked them, for example, to make note of any conversations you have about nature, and we said nature more broadly, so we could find out, are kids talking about astronomy, falling into that category. They talk about animals a lot, but after that, astronomy or like things in the sky came in second. But we weren't doing, because we were working with informal settings, we weren't really doing like a long-term study of specific children and progress they made. But we were looking for, one of our research partners was Julia Plummer at Penn State, and maybe some of you are familiar with her because some of her research does focus on planetariums. She was really looking at specific science practices and whether the activities we were developing supported children in engaging in those practices. So let me see if I can remind myself what science practices she was. It's been a while since we did this one, but she was looking at asking questions about the world, observation, analyzing data, constructing explanations, using tools to gather information, creating representations and models. Those were her science practices that she defined. And so at first, when you hear it, you might think a 4-year-old's not going to do any of that. But if you go to that page again that I posted, there's also an overview of science practices, these science practices and what they look like for young children. So that's not the type of research I think you're asking about, but that's what we did in that study.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and I can't say much about the research methodology here because we were more the educators developing the activities, and then we were working with those partners at Penn State, UC Santa Cruz, and Cal Poly, who were really doing the research pieces. But if you follow up with me, I could probably send you some of the papers that came out of it.
Yeah, or anybody that might be doing that at Cal Poly or whatever, any network outreach, that'd be great.
Yeah, just send me an email to remind me. I'd be happy to send something along.
Thank you.
Tony, can we take one more question at this point?
Yeah, I see that Jeff just changed his name from iPhone series of letters and numbers, and I thought it was Jeff, but go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to respond to the question about how to get your presenters more comfortable. My answer to that is just more training. It's hard to say that nowadays because training your staff does feel so expensive, and nobody has extra time. But if you want better presenters, my answer is that you need better training and more training. And this goes back to the days of when Alan, and every hour that Alan and Toshi spent training me made me a better presenter, made me better. It was an investment in me, and I appreciated it. I hope they appreciated it too. It got me where I am now, and it benefits everyone if you just invest more in your staff, I would say. And this whole teaching is a skill that needs to be learned, that needs to be practiced, that needs to be mentored. And especially teaching in a dome, and especially teaching to young audiences, every layer requires extra training. And I know that's probably not the answer that most people want. Most people want a quick fix, right? But if you want better presenters, it requires better training is my answer.
Yeah, and in response to that, one of the things that we have done when we do school shows and preschool shows, that is pretty much only our full-time staff that get trained on those. So we do have folks that are in more and giving more presentations and stuff are also automatically the folks that focus on the more niche, I guess you could say, shows like that. So.
Yeah, and Alan, you can correct me if I'm misremembering, but before I did my very first show, I spent hours and hours watching other people do shows, taking notes, getting reviews, practicing, and Alan and Toshi paid for that time, and I was very grateful for it, and it sounds expensive, but it's an investment in your own staff. So.
And I'll just read out what Anna just put in the chat too, that part of the reason that ASP is interested in having this session today is that we would love to work with the planetarium community to develop kind of an extension of that My Sky Tonight project, to find out what does the community need, and how could we help to kind of fulfill some of that stuff. So part of that, I think, would be potentially developing some staff training that you'd be able to do with your staff for this audience. So that's one of the things that we're sort of hoping can kind of grow out of this session today, is kind of see where that goes. And again, we will have a whole discussion room about this. So if you have more that you want to say, then we can do that here in just a minute. Andy is last, final, and then we're going to transition to breakout rooms. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, so I've worked in planetariums on college campuses that have early childhood education programs. And so at one of the places I was working, we just kind of developed a relationship with them where they could come in once a month, and I would, talk to the teachers there and try to, shadow what they were working on in their program, and kind of model that in the planetarium. But of course, getting into astronomy, of course. But I was just going to say training, and this probably goes against what Jeff was just saying about spending a long time. I thought it was just remarkably helpful just to spend some time in their child development center and watching how these very skilled preschool teachers engage the kids. You learn so much from that.
Well, I would count that as training.
Of course, yeah.
Alternatively, you can also just have some toddlers of your own, and then you'll figure it out.
Well, I've had kids, I've had grandkids, and I still found it helpful because you lose that that muscle.
And your experience as a parent is different from people who are trained in engaging children in a classroom too, right? My kid, when he's at home, my 4-year-old, is very different than how he acts at school at daycare. So, which, as a side note, he loves the Breakfast Moon book. I had to take it off the nighttime story shelf because it's a little bit too long for that, but he found it really engaging, and I actually read it to his classroom as a prep before the eclipse over here, which went pretty well. Okay, so we would love to move into some breakout rooms to have some discussions on a couple of topics. I work for ASP remotely from Pullman, Washington. Previously to this, I had managed the J. Waddimal Planetarium in Honolulu for about 4.5 years, and currently still do some part-time presentations in the Washington State University Planetarium and the Science Center that's here in town as well. So I'm with ASP, and I'm also still a little bit practicing in planetariums, and I'm really excited to be able to work with this community and help to build some of this, what we're working on here. So that's kind of where I'm coming from right now, as we've done some kind of half introductions of ourselves through this. So for the breakout rooms, we're going to have 4 topics of discussion, and each of the rooms, when I open them, you'll see the label for them. So I'll just mention what they are now, and then you'll see them written in a second. So one room will be, what do you currently do with preschool age kids? What are the challenges to engaging preschoolers? What are successful engagement strategies? And what do you feel like you need to build confidence for either yourself or for your staff, if you have staff, yeah. Ideally, we'll kind of stick to one room for the whole 10 minutes that we're gonna have these discussions, but if you would like to move to a different one, you can. So you'll have that ability to choose what room you go into first, and then if you want to move to a different room, then you can do that. We are also going to use a Jamboard to capture some of the discussion that we're doing. And if you haven't used a Jamboard before, I'll show you what that looks like on here. And there's a couple of tools for it. If you happen to be joining from a mobile device or a tablet, it might prompt you to download an app for Jamboard. If you don't want to do that, you certainly don't need to for the purposes of this. You can absolutely participate in the discussion in the Zoom breakout room. And then if you want to ask somebody else just to add some sticky notes for you, then you can do that. So I'll just mention that. If you're on a browser, then if you're on a laptop or desktop, whatever, then it should just open as a new browser tab for you. So this is what Jamboard looks like. It's a product that's run by Google, and unfortunately support for it ends in October. So we are still able to use it for now, but I'll just mention that. So there's a couple of things that I'll point out first. Up here at the top, when you first join it, when I give you the link here in a minute, there are 4 slides that correspond to those 4 breakout rooms. These are not connected softwares, so you will have to open the Jamboard link and then go to your breakout room and then select the slide for your room, if that makes sense. Yeah, so if you go to the second room, which is what are the challenges to engaging preschoolers, then you'll use the arrow up here at the top to navigate over to that Jamboard. On the left side, there's a couple of tools that are over here. One of them is sticky notes. So you can click on that and it'll bring this up. And you can add a sticky note and write on it, type on it, change the color, whatever you want to do. Click save and it'll get added onto the Jamboard. To get rid of that, click cancel or click off of it. And then you can move it around, you can rotate it, whatever, make it a bigger or smaller size, whatever you would like to do. So that's some of the basics for how we're going to use Jamboard. Again, if you're on a mobile or tablet device and you don't want to open this, that's fine. You can still participate in the discussion with your group. Keep in mind for after we're done with the 10 minutes of breakout rooms, we will summarize some of those discussions. So within those groups, please pick one person or two people or however you want to do it to share with the main room what we talk about. The recording will not capture the breakout rooms, but it will capture that bit afterwards. So for anybody who's going to watch the recording, we want to make sure that we are able to summarize the things that were talked about in there. You also, if you would like, if you don't want to move to a different room, but you have a thought you want to share on a different Jamboard, you can go to a different Jamboard slide and you can add a sticky note on there without having to move to that room. This is all very informal, you know, whatever you would like to do is great. We will have, somebody will stay here in the main room. We're not necessarily going to facilitate these conversations in the breakout rooms. We'll kind of leave that up to all of you. And we're just really interested to hear kind of what comes out of this. So before I give you the link and you all click on that and stop paying attention to me, what questions do you have about what we're about to do or functioning Jamboard or anything else like that? And if anything else comes up, then as we go, then feel free to ask and we'll figure it out together. I would like to just point out the strategy that I'm using of not giving you the materials that you're going to use until I'm done with my explanation. Because as many of us have experience with, you give them the thing, you're going to play with it and stop listening to the instructions. So I'll put the link to the Jamboard in the chat first and give everybody get there. And then I will open up the breakout rooms and then you will be able to see and choose what room you would like to go into.
Tony, did you want me and Anna to kind of split up between?
Yeah, I mean, we're not really facilitating the conversation,
Sure.
but we all three need to be in the same room. So we can just kind of look and see where people are at. Okay, so I'm going to open those rooms now. So you should have an option to join. And then we have about 10 minutes and we'll come back. We're going to, so the Jamboard is view only. It should be set that you can edit it. Hang on a second. Let me just check. Oh, it does say viewer, editor. Okay. Thanks, Brianna. That should be fixed now.
You might need to refresh and then it should work.
Yeah, I may need to refresh your browser. Okay. Do you all see the options for joining breakout room?
Yes.
Okay. Ready, set, go.
I'm gonna go into the first one if that's cool.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Which one do you want to go to, Tony?
I might just kind of wait and see where I'm gonna let folks go and then see where there are many people.
I'm sorry, where are the options? I don't see them.
So you should see, are you on a computer or are you looking on a tablet or phone?
I'm on a laptop.
Okay. So if you don't see there should be a pop-up for breakouts. If you don't see that, then at the bottom, there should be that row of icons like chat, share screen, those kind of things. There should be one for breakout rooms. If you click on that, it should bring up your options.
And if you don't see it there, click the little 3 dots that say more.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
We can also send people to a specific breakout room. If you're having trouble, just tell us which one you want to go to.
Can you send me to strategies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Anna, do you want to do that?
Sure. See, that was JT. There you go.
Alan, do you want to pause the recording?
You should be able to. Oh.
If you don't mind, I'm going to do another little experiment. Another idea came to my mind, and that is to not stop the recording and to go share a screen and look at the Jamboard as it progresses.
Oh, I like that idea.
That's okay?
Oh, whatever you want to do is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. This isn't. It's a off the cuff idea. So
let's go jump into the.
So here we're looking at the Jamboard. And I can actually, it looks like there's 5 Jamboards. Let's see. Let me go. There's Jamboard 2, Jamboard 3, and Jamboard 4. Is there a 5th one? No. Okay, good. So now I feel a little bit like we're in the election. I feel like I'm on TV and doing an election returns. You know, we don't have any it looks like we're too early for returns from room 4. But you need to build confidence. So we'll have to wait a little while on that one, but we can watch the others. We have one result from room 1.
I don't think we have anybody in room 4 yet.
Oh, okay. I wonder if that's because that's like one of the hardest ones. So it looks like we have 2 pundits, Rosemary and me, to comment on the results. But we're actually going to have a whole discussion on this in about, I guess, 8 or 9 minutes now.
I guess people can upvote if they make the little square bigger.
Is that right? That's called
Well, I just invented that. Like you can upvote kind of social posts and things.
Oh, okay. Can skew the election by making your contribution bigger. This is not an election, though.
It's kind of like how many thumbs up you get.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by upvoting.
This is kind of neat watching it develop, people's ideas coming in. There's quite a few coming in on the challenges. On the challenges page, there's a lot coming in here.
Yep.
Some on the, oh, look, somebody did make theirs bigger. They went.
Looks like we're getting a pretty good response on the first 3.
Yeah. Especially,
nobody yet
especially
in the
a
last
second
room.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're back. But where's Tony?
I'm here. Hello.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sure that just like the room that I was in, your conversations probably got a little bit cut off, but hopefully we had some good discussion going initially. So what we'd like to do next is just kind of summarize what happened in each of the rooms, and then if there is still interest in continuing some of these conversations, maybe we can take a few minutes after we're done summarizing if folks have something that they're just really dying to share. So is there someone from the first room? What do you currently do with preschoolers who would like to summarize
We didn't pick a person, but I can summarize. So we talked about a bunch of different things. We talked about when we notice if things are busier or less busy for these shows. Talked a little bit about specifically a sensory-friendly kindergarten show that one person has. The different topics that we tend to cover. So things like the sun, the moon, stars, planets. And someone else mentioned a show that they are about to do for pre-K where you go to Mars and follow around a rover, Mars rover and things like that. Mentioned the fact that often you'll get kids that will come back to the same show over and over and over, especially the little kids like to see repetition and love to just see the same thing a bunch of times. And then the last, we did get cut off with an interesting question, actually, that maybe after we summarize, we can talk more about, is how to deal with, especially like homeschool groups that will have a huge range of ages. So how to deal with an audience that has like a very wide range of age groups.
Tony and Mary and Anna, should we do a screen share showing the Jamboards for the sake of the recording while we're doing this?
Yeah, great idea. I'll share that.
I mean, I was showing it actually during the breakout rooms.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So anything else from what you currently do? Okay. So then the next one is, what are the challenges to engaging preschoolers? And I think, Andy, you were going to take this one.
Yeah, so this kind of naturally led us to talking about solutions and what we do to overcome these challenges. But yeah, you can see some of these here. So yeah, I like this thing that Tony brought up, limited life experience, where you know, most kids aren't going to know what you're going to present to them in advance. Although, you know, with kids at any age, of course, they can surprise you. Then short attention spans. So that was one advantage of when I brought these child development center groups in monthly, is we could keep them short and sweet because they'd be coming back. Yeah, more of a problem when it's kind of a one-shot deal, which it mostly is in planetariums. And then I brought up disengaged teachers. That I don't find that necessarily to be the case with preschoolers. I think preschooler teachers are always on, but I think it's more important that they be engaged at this age, and that's something you can, you know, prepare them for. You know, I need your help. Let's see, what are some of the other challenges? Oh, I'm looking up here. I can look straight at my screen. Yeah, the fear of the dark, obviously. So, you know, we talked about strategies for dealing with that, you know, making the transition slowly, addressing it beforehand. And Carl even talked about doing a show where, you know, you gave them their own agency over the control of it, making it darker. So they were involved in that. So that kind of made that fear dissipate. And let's see, yeah, limited vocabulary. So, you know, you need to find different ways to talk about things, and, you know, just repeat it in different ways. But, you know, I find I do that with regular audiences too. And then Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star was not a challenge. That was a solution.
Yeah, it was really hard to have this discussion of like, what's hard about doing this without everyone being like, oh, but you can try this. So I wanted this to be one of the prompts because I wanted us to kind of be able to like name some of these issues that we have, and in hopes of being able to group think about some challenges, but also in the purposes of informing a future training, wanting to know, like identifying what do people find challenging about it, right? So then some of this is going to be helpful for us later if we're trying to develop something. Then we can have some of this. And spoiler alert, we're going to give you a link to a survey that you can fill out that'll have some of the same prompts on it too, if you're willing to help us out with that. Yeah, at ASP, we love doing surveys.
I was wondering, maybe I missed something, but help take away the sunlight. What exactly does that mean?
So at Fisk, when there's a variety of techniques that we use, but one of them is before the lights even start to come down, when we're still just in normal kind of theater light. If it's a small group of kids that we feel like might be afraid of the dark, one way or one technique that you can have them a little bit more in control is to reach up and grab a piece of sunlight and put it in their pocket, and then slowly the lights come down. And so it's their reaching in for the light, you know, and putting it in their pocket. And then they, at the end, you can reverse it where they release the sunlight back in the sky and the sun rises. And so it gives them authority over the spatial change and gives them the ability to interact and, you know, move their arms, get their energy out. The more kinesthetic you can be with little children, the kind of happier they become. So just a technique we had.
Thank you.
Thaddeus, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm just not familiar with that phrase, environmental emotional attachment, and I wanted some clarification of just what was meant by that.
So environmental emotional attachment is kids become very aware of their spatial environments, especially when they're entering new buildings. So little kids, the second they walk into the planetarium door, the threshold of the dome, they kind of like get overwhelmed, like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Or there's other kids that become anxious and withdrawn because the space is changing on them and they're not quite sure what's happening. It's a big dome, weird seats, sometimes, you know, colorful lights, but they still react very heavily to their environment. And that kind of goes along with the children following the cues of the adults in the room. And that might also be the disengaged teachers. But if somebody is acting surprised, then the children will be looking for that cue. If the adult in the room is fearful, then all of a sudden they're going to become fearful. So the environmental awareness of what new children in a new environment are experiencing and being aware of that spacecraft, if you will, can help ease the children into a state of like, oh, this is going to be a really fun event. I'm glad I'm here, instead of, oh my God, the lights are going off and I'm still scared and where's mom and I need to pee, and, you know.
Also asking them to look around and tell you what they notice is really important because it grounds them in the space.
And then Mike brought up, you know, if you warn the teachers, yeah, if there's a kid who's especially sensitive, maybe have them come in last. So if they need to leave, they can without being too disruptive, that sort of thing.
Erin, go ahead.
Thanks. Just wanted to add on to that too. When we do our shows for any age, but specifically for the younger kids, we gather them in the lobby to begin with and then kind of give them an orientation and tell them what to expect and what is the space going to look like. So we tell them it's like a movie theater, but it's a little bit different. And when you get to your seat, I want you to look around and try to find where my movie screen is, because it's a little bit different and it's a different shape. And we talk a lot about shapes. So kind of prepping them before we even go into the theater. But then that kind of touches a little bit on the limited life experience, because not all kids have seen a movie at a movie theater. And you also have to think, you know, socioeconomically, not everybody has the same opportunities as others. And so it's really kind of being attuned to your audience and their experience that they have so far, and then informing them, here's what to expect before we jump into this crazy theater has, oh my God, so many lights and there's colors and what's happening. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Okay, so Anna just put the link to that survey I mentioned in the chat. If you have to leave, then we want to make sure that you have a chance to get that link. We'll also include it with, once the recording is posted, then in that notification that will get sent around that the recording's ready, we'll put the link to the survey in that. So if you're watching the recording, then check that email and you can fill out the survey for us as well. So just to move us along, let's go check oh, sorry, I saw Carlos, you had your hand up for a second. Do you want to go real quick?
Yeah, just trying to add to see if anybody's tried this. We had very limited experience with preschool. We had a 3 and 4, pre-K 3 and 4 class come in. But just recently, and I'm not treating them the same way, but we had an autistic program. So we had like 48 students that were all on the spectrum of varying degrees or levels. But I was able to send, and I don't know if this helps anybody, images of students or kids in the dome, their experience. So you see kids smiling and then say, hey, teachers, you can, show this to the students to kind of prep them to, this is what the space might look like before they actually show up. I don't know if that's something somebody already does or if you try. It did work out for that group. I tried everything with them just in case. I wanted to be extra prepared. But they said it helped out a lot because they liked the fact that those kids were able to see other kids in there enjoying themselves. So they were excited to get in rather than fearful of the unknown, I guess. So I don't know if that helps anybody. But
that's actually an element. There's I can't remember the accessibility certification that institutions and places can get. Maybe somebody else knows what it is, but there's a organization that does training for helping families both with neurodivergent kids and other family members who might come, and that's part of one of those like things to get certified by their organization, that these families know to look for that symbol, is having those pictures and images of your facility so they know what they're going into ahead of time. So that is actually, that's part of the, and I'll see if I can remember what that organization is. But that is definitely an element of that I think can be really helpful. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, let's move to the third question prompt. What strategies are successful for making programs engaging and interactive for preschoolers?
Okay, I'm the recorder for that. Lots of really, really good ideas. People obviously have worked well with young children. Several things suggested. If you're going to show, for example, the sun at different times of day, relate to the student's day, what's going on. Where the sun is just coming up, that might be when you're having breakfast, sun is high in the sky, lunchtime, that kind of thing. I did a lot of meal stuff, a lot of that. Using the dome as and one suggestion was a star safari, where yes, you're looking for constellations, but perhaps particularly for animals. Young children really like showing what they can do. They love singing, They really like being able to show where a shape is or where a color is, or they like counting things that can show the skills that they already have. Using those animal constellations and then sounds of different kinds of animals, asking students to identify them. And if some lion roar elicits, oh, that's a dinosaur, then redirect the question. That could be, what else do you think it might be, kind of thing. And they also love to talk. Everybody talking at once, everybody piling into the same seat. They're just still, as you pointed out, not a lot of life experience so far. So a suggestion is what are called elbow partners, the kid sitting right next to you. Share what you're talking about or share your answer with an elbow partner rather than just shouting it out, everybody all together. Excuse me, at the same time. Also using things like the imagination. If you're going on a space trip, everybody make sure you've got your seatbelts buckled, put on your pretend space helmet. Again, kinesthetic activities that will help. Let's see, we have a couple more. Occasionally using references to pop culture. My suggestion was you know, when you saw the Lion King, oh yeah, I saw Lion King. And then, you know, what animal was so-and-so. So that's another possibility. But there are a lot of, at least they're all written down really quite well. End of report. Thank you.
And I shared this with the group, but I wanted to mention that for My Sky Tonight, we did work with a songwriter and created a couple of songs, one about constellations and another about star properties. And I was thinking as we wrap up here, maybe I could play them as people are leaving. So, but you'll find the recordings and lyrics on the My Sky Tonight page.
Yeah, Anna, the mention of putting on your make pretend helmet. I remember one of your slides had a paper bag helmet.
Yep.
And that's something
we did you know, exploring the moon. So they would make their own paper bag helmets, and we would give them gloves and like booties, and they'd get all suited up, and we'd pretend to be in our rocket ship, and we'd create like a lunar landscape with just pillows and things so that they could pretend to be astronauts. But they had a lot of fun with the paper bag helmets.
Okay, and I remembered Culture City is the name of the organization that I did that training through the Science Center that's here in Pullman, that they got certified as a sensory inclusive place that has a bunch of different practices for that. So that's something to check out. Okay, so we had one more, which was, what do you need to build confidence in engaging this audience? And no one chose to go to that room, which is fine. That's a question that's on the survey, so maybe that we'll be able to collect some of that information through that survey. But just maybe as a group right now, if you didn't choose to go into that one, that's fine. Maybe you wanted to go to a different one more. But does anyone have any thoughts about needs either for your coffee? Yes.
I think this is where Jeff's
you can anticipate that your staff might need, or maybe we can just take a minute and with this whole group, does anybody have any thoughts for this?
This is where Jeff's comment comes in, training.
Yeah, that practice.
Yeah, and I think really, so the experience of just like trying some stuff and trying to figure out if it works I think is really big, right? So whether it's structured and informed training, or whether it's just finding, you have your groups come in. If there's somebody in your staff who is experienced and knows, and you don't have a lot of them that come in, make that an opportunity for other people to come and join. Like, you don't need 5 presenters for something, but if you have somebody with a lot of experience and you want the rest of your staff to know, then you can bring other people in if they're available, and kind of be able to see that live and in person, because it's different to kind of see it and see that how dynamic those kids are and how all over the place they all are, than it is to kind of read about it in some other kind of training that you might be able to provide. Yeah.
Andy's comment about inviting early childhood education experts in, to either demonstrate or to give a talk or something, that would go here too.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you have like regular staff meetings or something like that. Yeah, visiting them. And by doing is good. I think that being able to embrace that you will probably mess up and make some mistakes, and just know that going in, and you try it again next time, right? And we learn from those mistakes. I think that's something that a lot of us try to really embrace. And I think I found a lot of success in that. I mean, that's just being a parent. For those of us who are parents, you find that out, right? You just try something, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you try it different next time. So yeah.
ASP is looking to do something, one thing, because a lot of us cannot get out to see examples of good practice, then videos of good practice examples would be valuable.
Thanks for that, Susan. And for My Sky Tonight, all of our training was virtual online. And so we really made a point of making sure we had good video of actual kids engaged in the activities. So thank you for reiterating the importance of that. We do a lot of our training. We're really almost exclusively virtual at this point, except for sometimes conferences at workshops. And we know getting together in person definitely has its benefits, but so does interacting virtually. It makes it more accessible, and doing it over time gives you time to like integrate it into your daily practices. So we've been offering these virtual workshops for over 15 years. We're kind of ahead of the curve, and video is definitely an important piece of it. So we'll keep that in mind as we think about what we might be able to provide for you all.
Stop sharing the
well, thank you so much.
slide.
This has been a wonderful wonderful Zoom call. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Helpful. I had one other question that didn't really fit into one of these other ones that I'm curious how people do, and that's like, how do you engage not just the individual kids but their caregivers who come with them? Because as somebody had mentioned, that you get a lot of repeat customers, right? I know for a lot of my friends, you go to the library story time on Tuesdays, you go to the Science Center on Wednesdays, you go to the planetarium on Thursdays, right? That's what you do every week. And I think a successful strategy for engaging these young children can be engaging their parents. And their parents, sometimes, speaking as a parent, we have no idea what we're doing either. And being able to learn something and ways to engage my kids in scientific practices without, whether you name it that or not, like those are valuable things, I think, to learn too. So I'm interested if anybody in the group has specific things that you do to involve caregivers too, so that we had a mention of like sometimes the teachers check out, but I think parents might have a tendency to sort of check out as well, right? But I'll kind of open that to the group if you have experience with that at all. JT.
I would suggest making available post-visit activities that they can download and use. And, it can be like more discussion points, or it could be something like puzzles. I mean, there's a huge number of things that you could provide. It wouldn't take you too much time to make them, but just make sure that the people know how to find them and download them, and they'll probably, some of them will put them to use.
Part of engaging the parents is being knowledgeable about children. Because if you do things that are appropriate for the age of those children, of their children, they're so happy because they know what you're talking about. And there's a program or a video that is called Baby Symphony. And it's a video that's for babies and their parents or their caregivers. And outside of the dome, they always have facilities available for diaper changing, bottle warming, all these things. So we need to think about what could come up for a parent's child, even at 3 or 4 year olds. What could we have available to help them out? Possibly.
Yeah, I think that's huge from like a facility standpoint. If you're a mobile dome, you have different challenges, right? But so maybe knowing like where you're set up, like what's around there. If you're using somebody else's building at a community center or something, then working with them so that you know what that is. But if you have your own facility, then like what are the ways that you can make that more welcoming and more inclusive of people with young families? And one thing that I will just say is put changing tables in the men's restrooms too. I mean, have no gender restrooms, but like the number of times that I have like walked into a restroom with my kid and then I had to hand the baby to my wife to be like, I'm so sorry, I can't do this because there's no changing table. Put them on the floor, but like that's a huge, huge thing that I think is very different places and different facilities. So what are the ways that maybe you're overlooking or that you don't think about if you don't have children talk to your friends who have kids or other family, whatever, to be able to make your facility more family friendly, and be open to trying to make those changes. Carlos?
Hi, sorry again, me again. What I'd like to do with when I go out to the schools is I'll have whatever it is that we're talking about, say it be Mars or something. We have a like a QR code that teachers will scan with their phones, and it's linked right to a Google Doc with multiple links on there for resources that they can run with their students after the fact. But now I'm thinking with you're saying like you have repeat parents that are almost like weeklies. I wonder if there's opportunity where it's the same idea where they can just scan, they have these activities that bring the families together. But if they're regulars, maybe there's an opportunity there where those families can share out what they've made, and maybe talked about their experience, because now you're getting that communal kind of I guess attachment, like they're part of the show now. They're able to share even if it's at the beginning. Families taking pride in what they've done together. I don't know if that makes sense, but or maybe like a passport book if you want. I see somebody here like a return, like coming back to the dome. Maybe it's a passport book where you kind of hole punch each planet, and once you have all the hole punches, you get some kind of, I don't know, prize or something along those lines. But I think that buy-in, that getting the parents involved with their kids at home, it just doesn't end like as a movie theater, like, all right, the movie's over, let's go home. Well, no, hey, this is what we talked about, and if you have kids, like you're saying, Tony, like myself, these kids want to keep talking about what they just experienced, and we can, ride that motivation. And then if you're going back next week and then I meet the presenter and say, hey, family, show me what you made, if they bring it back in. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know. It's just a thought, but.
I like Joyce's idea though too, because if you give them links to activity, that's one thing, but parents don't look those things up when they leave. They're too busy. So if you have some simple thing that you're giving them to take with them, it's much more effective, I think. And then you can also give them the links for further if they're really motivated for further activities to do. But there's nothing like having something immediately right after the show.
I would second that. I always had a drawer full of, tchotchkes and photos and everything. So, if you'd see somebody, well, yeah, actually it used to be my policy. Hey, ask me a question and I'll give you something, right? And that motivated them to give a question, but something they can take home and put on their wall, that's golden.
In addition to those links for other stuff, because some parents will follow up on those things. A lot of them won't, but I love it when I get other stuff. So yeah, I think we don't have to have an either or, but yeah, those links together. Amy and then Thaddeus.
While I have them in the theater, it can be a fine line how you're presenting. Are you presenting for the 3-year-old or are you presenting for their parent? And there's definitely one show I still distinctly remember where I just went on autopilot and I did a brain dump about the planets in our solar system, and I could feel I was losing everybody. So I would err on the side of the kid with the child's age as you're presenting, because invariably, I can't tell you how many times people are doing a scavenger hunt in my exhibit area and the adults don't know what the 5th planet from the sun is. They're like, okay, what was I'm like, oh my God. Thank you for coming. Okay, you can figure this out.
Yeah, just to go off of what Amy was saying there a little bit for that keeping engagement for all generations in the show itself. If you don't want to assume too much knowledge, if you're just trying to sorry. I was going to say, we had mentioned that idea of like elbow partners for that method for engaging kids, and that like, oh, if you have an idea, you're sharing it with the person next to you. If you're making their elbow partner be their parent, so they're sharing a thing with their parent, then that brings the parent in. It's making it part of their experience that the kid is having. If there's a query-based thing, that gets involved. So just making sure you're talking to everybody, that you're not, and then I think Amy was right. you know, skew towards the kids, not towards the adults, but have them share things or ask questions of their parents in the show, and that can be fine.
Oh, quick thing I'll add to all of that as well. I've had a couple of times where adults want to act like kids too. Like people will come to like the show and I'll be like, just so you know, this is designed for 2 to 5-year-olds. And they're like, well, can I watch it anyway? And I'm like, yeah. and they do, and they're engaged and they interact too. So it's like sometimes people just want to watch a kid show.
Oh yeah, I mentioned in our breakout room, like I make kids point at things and do physical motions to trace shapes in the sky and things like that. I have the adults do that too. Everybody is pointing and tracing, and it helps lock things into the adult brains as much as it does the kids' brains too.
You also have to be careful with the wording of who the grown-up is, because it could be not a parent. So I always say, ask your grown-up, or, when you go home, you and your grown-up can, instead of saying your mother or your father, because it's a very problematical thing if that's not what that family unit is. So, and parents love to see their kids succeed or have fun. So if you're talking to the kids, you're engaging the parents, the grown-ups.
Yeah, because they're only going to stay as long as the parents are only going to stay as long as the kids are going to stay. You get a kid start, drowning out or screaming, and I'm leaving. But if you're engaging my kid, I'm happy. If they're having a great time, I'll stay as long as they're willing.
And one thing that I wanted to point out about Mary's Hopewell Hall programs was you have an open door policy for that, right? So you come in and go at any point during that. And I think that especially for young kids, that's really important. I know for a lot of our shows, like Light in the Dome is don't do it. No light in the dome, close the doors, right? But those are some considerations for making it more friendly and more inclusive for kids, is figuring out ways like, can you leave the door cracked open a little bit? Because it maybe lets in a little bit more light, makes it more comfortable for them. And then also so they're able to leave when they need to. And we're never running on time as parents, especially with young kids. So like letting me come in early is huge, or come in late is huge. So those are all some things to really, I think, keep in mind too. Any other kind of final closing thoughts? I know we're at 12:30 Pacific time, and an hour and a half since we started this thing, and I'm enjoying the conversation. Hopefully you all are too, and I think we probably should wrap it up though. Rosemary.
That last comment by you made me wonder, like coming in early. I just wonder if there are things that people have found useful for like the pre-show ambiance when you have really small kids, or is it just quiet? Or do you put some music on? Do you have something on the dome or screen?
We always have music playing for as walk-in music for any of our shows. But for our like ages 6 and older shows, so like school age level, we created a PowerPoint of questions and answers, and that's just running constantly as people are walking in. So as they're sitting down, they're looking at the screen and saying, oh, how many constellations are there? And then the next slide comes up and says, there are 88. And then the next slide says, please put your phones away. And then it goes into the next question. So things like that.
I'm wondering if it's helpful to have a outside, if you're a live presenter, meet the group outside and do something with them outside the planetarium before bringing them in. So you establish a relationship before actually going into the dome. Is that? I know I've done that.
Erin mentioned that earlier, that's what she does with young kids, is give them a preface of what they're about to see. So give them an idea of what they're about to see before bringing them in.
Right. Yeah.
See your face too, I think too, right? Because depending on the setup of your dome, like you might have your controls at the back and it's dark, and then you just hear this voice in the room. And especially if you're like deep male voices might be especially intimidating for some kids, right? And so really letting them see who you are and you know, that there's a person here that's talking to you. And I think that can help to make them comfortable for that as well. So yeah, Ellen, it's a great point. I really like that idea.
Us mobile domers, we have to have a pre-show basically outside the dome because you got to get them in. And I use that as a warm-up. It's like in the TV shows, there's somebody go out and do a few jokes and things beforehand. I use that as a warm-up period to get the kids to know me and to get to know the kids.
I especially love doing it if you're going for one of those immersive type experiences. If you're doing the whole, we're going to be in a rocket ship and blasting off, you're a bunch of astronauts. So it's like you're greeting them at the shuttle bay and bringing them in and just like is help priming them for that experience. So it's already a rocket ship before they've even entered the planetarium. So I think that's a really good opportunity to start building up those kind of ideas, especially if you're in a costume.
Even teachers in classrooms, just your standard schooling, they suggest meeting your students at the door. It's not, hey, they're just coming into you, and it welcomes them in there. They see your face. You can greet them as they enter. So even if you're just greeting them, it'd be nice to do that outside your dome rather than just walking in. But yeah, I agree with Mike as well. It's we have the portable planetarium, so you're forced to have that pre-show going outside, which I think is great that we're starting this way because you're already used to having that, I guess that progression, you know, you'll meet people before getting into your dome. I think Amy does a great job too. She talks to everybody in her lobby before they even access her walkable space and her, you know, her scavenger hunts, and she introduces all aspects of her planetarium. So I think it's a great way to get to know, they get to know you, you get to know them a little bit, and then I guess, yeah, it just gets it sets the whole mood, I guess, for the rest of your presentation.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing your thoughts, and for, you know, everyone who's watched the recording all the way up to this point. Then hopefully you can share your thoughts with us to inform some hopeful future more work with the ASP and planetarium community. And you know, we definitely want to work with you all to create something for what's going to actually be useful. We don't want to take the approach of like, here, we made this thing for you. But we want to utilize the experience that you all have with the dome. Because although myself and a couple others, we've done planetarium stuff, it's not what we're doing currently. And I've done, you know, 4 years, right? So I still lean very heavily on the experience of others in this community. And it's one of the things that I most value is how we're able to share and learn from each other so much. So we hope to kind of leverage that going forward. Anna, do you have any closing thoughts or anything, or Mary?
I dropped some of the key links in the chat, the My Sky Tonight resources, our brief survey, which we'd appreciate you filling out, and a link about our virtual conference. We really hope to see many of you there. And this has been a wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and knowledge.
Yeah, thank you all. This went wonderfully.
And I'll just say it's a good thing that we have no hard cutoff for these seminars. Because this has been one of the best. And thank you, Tony and Anna and Mary. This is really, really valuable. Thanks so much.
Could I play our songs on the outro? Our star songs?
Play it.
Whoops, is it working? Oh no, technical difficulties. There we go.
Look up at the stars as they shine. Each one has a name, it's a sign. And when they form a group in the sky, it's called a constellation. Now in that group, each star has its place. It never moves like the nose on your face. So point up with your finger and trace to find a constellation. We love our constellations. We love our constellations.
Okay, Planetarian Zoom Seminar signing off. Thanks to everybody for coming.
Thanks, you all.